Okay, like I said, the what we're talking about today is producers cooperative, and we'll be talking about cost accounting in producers cooperative or production cooperative. We're talking about statistics and management appraisals and planning as it concerns producers cooperative. Okay, now, okay, like a way of specifying. All right, let's continue. So, like we said, the objective for today course is every student should be able to highlight some of the usefulness of cost accounting as well as define the concept cost accounting as it concerns producers cooperative. Every student should be able to enumerate how costing is carried out. Every student should be able to define the concept statistics. Every student should be able to identify the sources of statistical information and how to present statistical information in a way that would be useful to the management of producers cooperative. So this is about what we're going to talk about today. So let's run into it quickly. So like I said earlier, it's important that every cooperative, even an establishment or any organization, should be able to establish the products or the section or the department in such an organization that no longer contributes to the profitability of such organization or producers cooperative business as we are discussing today. Now, the knowledge of this enhances management decision making in choosing between alternatives. Should we continue this product? Should we drop this department? Should we continue with this section of this organization? Because it's becoming a burden for us. It's not profitable. Now, this session today, we are going to consider cost accounting as an important input in management decision making, specifically for producers cooperative. Okay, now let's highlight cost accounting and its usefulness first. First and foremost, cost accounting involves the preparation of some financial statements containing items such as income, expenditure, and profit or loss on a particular product or commodity or section or department of a business. And in this present discussion, or as it concerns producers cooperative, cost accounts are of particular value in budgeting, critical in budgeting. It's also very important in enabling and forecasting accurately, all right, what future costs of operation and what the firms, the basis of fixing prices, allocating scarce resources should be, and choosing between alternative plans for development. Now, in industrial production societies, cooperatives that are into industrial manufacturing, we call them industrial cooperative, it can be used to ascertain the comparative costs of producing different types of commodities and their power to compete in the market. Also, cost accounting often gives signals of necessary changes in purchasing or in stock control methods. The accuracy of cost account cannot be guaranteed in the same way as that of an ordinary financial account, which can be checked. For example, you get a financial account and you can check it against a bank statement. Why is this so? Simply because precision it is hard to be precise. It is very difficult to appropriate overhead among the various departments or commodities or processes. So that difficulty makes it hard. All right. Now consider these questions. What separate rent or depreciation should be charged for maybe a garage? How much time of the manager's time is spent on certain commodities or departments? How do you cost that? Now, the answers will necessarily depend on certain assumptions. You have to make some assumptions to get the answers now. However, the assumptions, where such assumptions are based on long-term experience, they should, when added to the ascertainable costs, that's cost that you can easily ascertain, they should be able to yield data on each section of the society's business, which can form a basis for secure judgment and sound policy decision. So let's discuss the procedure for costing, especially as it concerns producers cooperative. The procedure for costing involves estimation of direct expenses, which simply means payment for raw materials, for wages handling expenses, and so on, and indirect expenses, which comprises of storage costs, electricity bills, rent, stationary costs, depreciation, and management remunerations, which are reasonably confirmed to be direct to the process of production of a commodity. Now, the outcomes of these calculations, the outcome of these calculations over the year or years, when made available to the manager, becomes tool for management decision. So after all, the data you have forms a basis for making decisions. Now, suffice to say that managers must be able to use the fact intelligently, because it's not just enough to have data. You should be able to have the ability to use them. All right. Now, it is equally important to understand that cost accounting can only be undertaken by specially trained personnel. Of course, it's a specialty area, so cost accountants are the ones to handle this particular function. The results may be misleading unless the system is applied to the whole business of the cooperative and not only to selected items, which is especially desired to investigate. Probably you have it, all lines of products you are producing, but you just choose to carry out cost accounting for two or three of them and leave one out. No, do it for the entire business so you can evaluate clearly, have the complete data to make a decision. Success of costing also depends on ability and willingness of other employees, including employees like lorry drivers, like cashiers, to keep accurate records, which the cost accountant needs. Cost accounting is a fairly laborious and consequently expensive business, but the information obtained from it are very, very useful to the organization. Now, let's talk about statistics and management, as well as appraisal and planning. Now, what the concept statistics, what does it really stand for? As a wider concept, like accounting is a wide concept, cost accounting is a wide concept. Statistics is very crucial for effective management. Statistics data, our statistical data, are obtained from inside and outside of the producer's cooperative or an enterprise generally. At this point, let us look at the sources of statistical data, presentation of data, and the use of it for management decision. Statistics is a scientific method of decision making under uncertainties when numerical data and calculated risks are involved. Statistics is a method of obtaining facts in numerical terms, an effective way of measuring contribution, which different causes make it or make to or which different causes make to the same effect. That is, you see that one particular variable can cause various effect. So statistics uses the numerical terms to effect to explain the cause and effect as it relates to different variable or different items. For effective management, appraisal and planning of producers cooperative, statistical information is indispensable, quite important. Statistics relating to producers cooperative centers on analysis of the quantity as well as the quality of labor, material, and money that is expended in the cooperative. Sources of statistical information in a producers cooperative are majorly secondary, which are data from business records of the cooperative. And these secondary data are supplemented with primary data obtained from inquiries. You can simply just inquire directly from staff, from management staff, executives, what this or that is all about. And this in primary data can be obtained through observation or through questionnaires. Now, primary source of data, when trying to extract statistics for analyzing or making decisions in a producer's cooperative, primary sources of data. The primary sources of data include questionnaire designs, interviewing, and experimentation. A questionnaire can be defined as a list of drawn questions or statements in which the interviewee is required to give a reply. There are two types of questionnaires, the open-ended response and the closed-ended questionnaires. Let's explain them so you get the point. In open-ended responses, the questions are constructed in such a way that the format of the reply cannot be controlled. You just ask someone, how are you feeling? The person can just keep typing and telling you how he feels. It's open-ended. All right. So, in other words, the interviewee is given the opportunity to express himself in his own words without necessarily being influenced by any outside body. In a closed response questionnaire, the questions are drawn in such a way that the answers are given within some defined specific types of reply, meaning the questions are drawn and you are limited to the options that are after the questions. For example, someone tells you, what do you think about the management of your cooperative? The options are excellent, not so excellent, I don't know, not good at all, terrible. And you're expected to choose from these options. Once there are options for you to choose, it means that the interviewee is restricted to these options, meaning that questionnaire is not open-ended, it's closed-ended. So your type of reply is limited. Now, questionnaire design. Both the open-ended responses and the closed-ended responses or response questionnaire have their merits and demerits. In the open-ended response questions are answered in considerably greater depth, and they permit a wide range of replies. However, among its demerits is the laborious pattern exhibited in collecting data, which creates logistical problem in analyzing them. For example, someone, how are you feeling? The person just goes on and on and on and tells you how he feels. Now, how do you rate his feeling? Difficult. But if you have a closed-ended question and you say, how are you feeling? Is it fine? Not so fine? I don't know. I feel terrible. I feel very terrible. Now you can rate these replies by giving each one a number with which you can easily calculate or weight the responses. Now, in a closed response questionnaire, replies are relatively easy to interpret and they do not require the use of highly skilled labor for analysis, just as I said now. They also permit the use of very large sample size. It should be realized that while the closed response questionnaires are suitable for large sample size, the open-ended response questionnaires are suitable for small sample sizes. Another primary source of data is interviewing. Interviewing is defined as a process by which an investigator, who is the interviewer, attempts to obtain direct information from the respondent, the interviewee, about a given phenomenon. Interviews can be conducted to supplement for information obtained from desk research and to substantiate a hypothesis indicated by desk research. There are three types of questions used in interviewing, and they are: one, the structured questions; number two, unstructured questions; and number three, semi-structured questions. In structured question interview, the investigator, who is the interviewer, is provided with questionnaires indicating the way and manner the question to be asked. The respondent, who is the interviewee, can be supplied with a copy of these questions either prior to the interview session or at the time of the interview. For the unstructured question, interview represents a framework within the interviewer's research interest. The discussion is defined within the investigator, which is the interviewer's purpose of study, the objective of the study, and the scope of the study. Now, the unstructured question interview permits the investigator to pursue a research interest which the respondent, which is the interviewee, has a specific interest in. So you said this is a little open-ended. Now, this semi-structured question interview represents a middle way between the structured and the unstructured question interviews. Thus, this is some definition of topic of the interview to be considered and of the construction of some of the questions employed. It should be borne in mind that once the various questions, types of questions to be asked in the interview are completed, we can now determine the method of interview to be adopted. Another primary source of data is experimentation. Experimentation is the process by which we measure the relationship between one or more variables on some other variables. In experimentation, we can manipulate one or more variables such that we are able to establish and measure its effect upon one or more other variables. Some examples of experiments conducted in business and in economics are measuring the effect of financial liberation on economic growth, measuring the effect of military spending on economic growth, measuring the effectiveness of monetary policies, and assessing the impact on sales managers' income, and so on and so forth. These are experimentation. So in conducting an experiment, we should consider the existence of random errors, which are inherent part of the total variation in the dependent factors. Now, let's go to the secondary source of data for analyzing statistics and all that as a concise producer's company. Secondary sources are sources for which data is already exists. All right, secondary sources are data that are already existing but have not been collected for any investigation. Secondary sources can be divided into two main categories: the internal source and the external source. Of course, the name helps you to understand what this data is all about and where it is from. Now, the internal sources are sources for which data are collected within the organization of the firm. Data collected from internal sources are easily accessible and are time and cost saving. Examples of internal data are company records such as sales records, sales statistics, production records, employment statistics, inventory records, financial records, employment record, and so on and so forth. External sources are those for which data are collected from outside the organization. A major type of external source is like government statistics, the MBS statistics, among others. General statistics, production statistics, and the economy. They just include a lot in them. Okay, now general statistics deals with issues such as monthly and annual, what do we call it now? Annual digests relating to wages and salaries and social trends of events such as demographic data, housing, education, health, population, and so on. Now, production is concerned with production statistics. So digest of the company's energy statistics, family economic advancement program, and all those statistics that could be inside that general information you get from outside the organization. Okay, now the general published statistics on the economy reviews economic trends, things like problems and prospects, inflation rate, exchange rate, employment as well as crime, population, and so on and so forth. GDP records, GMP records, and so on. All these are secondary data. Other external sources are like data from journals, directories, yearbooks, The Nigerian Journal of Social and Economic Studies has its own secondary data and can be used. The Nigerian Financial Review is also a source of secondary data, and they have journals also. There are also private sources such as Bank Almanac published by Redaxel. Now, secondary sources for comparative data can be acquired through international organizations as well. Now, like the United Nations has what it refers to as the United Nations Statistical Yearbook, right? Which can provide information or data on country population, different countries' population, gross domestic product, national income, growth rate. You see all this information, they are all external sources and they are secondary sources of data. Now, secondary source of data for comparison can be acquired through international organization again, like the International Monetary Fund, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and they have different breakdown. For International Monetary Fund, the record has information on population, the GNP, the balance of payment of countries, the exchange rates for countries, the direct investments, and other micro and macro statistics. While Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development have information on country-specific information, like for US, Japan, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. Any of these data you use, just know you are using external data and a secondary source of data. Okay. Also, International Bank for Reconstruction and Development and the World Bank, they also publish data on member countries' economic activities. And their publication include World Bank Economic Review. It has a whole lot inside it. The World Bank Atlas, the World Bank Catalog, and so on and so forth. So there are also international research organizations that publish data, such as the Brookings Institute, Washington, the Research Triangle in North Carolina, US, and so on and so forth. Now, presentation of statistical information. Now, presentation is a very important area of statistics, which management must be competent and not ignore. Precisely, the manager must be able to present statistical information in form of tables, graphs, charts. Such information could be in form of output for some years and its future trends. Ratios of output to thousands of nairas invested in such production. Ratio of output to number of workers. Ratio of workers to machines. So this information can just be presented in this manner and in various forms. Now, let's take a look at presentation of information in a table. What you can see in front of you is an example of a table of producers' cooperative activities for the year 2000 to 2008. Now, look at this table. The table has 4 columns. The first column is the year. You can see for year 2000 to 2008. The second column is the membership number. The second column is the production, the price, the cost for production for each of these years, and then the sales for each of these years. You can see them clearly. To some people, this is confusing, but to some people, this is revealing. All right. I won't say much about this until we use it to plot a graph. Let's go to the next one. Now, look at presentation of statistical information in terms of a graph. We have taken this table now and we have plotted it on a graph, and this is the outcome of the graph. The graph of producers cooperative surplus. Now, this tells a story. Of course, the details may not be there. The surplus is on the left side and the years are on the base. Now, if you look at this, it simply tells you that the surplus of this particular cooperative is on the rise. It started growing from year 2000 and it was going, and peaked at 2005, and then started declining 2006, and then went up again to 2008, and at 2008 it's peaked again. So you can see it's graphical and it's telling a story. Now, the same data is presented in also a graph, but this time around in a bar chart. You can see it this way. So these are the ways the data can be presented. Now, cooperative management must make decisions with the statistical information so gathered and analyzed. Any departure from that is like a man groping in the darkness. Now, the managers should make the information available to members workers, and the general public by placing the tables, the graphs, and the charts of operational ratios and future trends of the business in conspicuous places like offices, in workshops, entrances to the factory, halls of meetings, distributed in meetings, shared to various people, staff, workers in their emails. These are informative. One of the principal use of statistics in business is to illustrate trends over a period of time. Everyone is familiar with the devices used for this purpose. The columns of figures, we just pointed that out in that graph we just talked about now, the rising lines of a graph, or the picture of a member getting bigger and bigger, by which the progress of the cooperative membership over the years is symbolized. The same thing can be said of some aspects of the society's affairs. Okay, now we have gone through a whole lot, and in summary, today in today's facilitation session, we highlighted the cost. We highlighted cost accounting as financial statement on a commodity or department or section. It also sheds light on the usefulness of cost accounts in choosing between alternative plans for development. The procedure for estimation of cost was explained, and the outcomes of calculations becomes tool to management decision making. We also offered definition of statistics and highlighted the sources of information in a producer's cooperative. We also delved into ways statistical data are presented. We mentioned table graphs and so on for decision makers and members generally. So in conclusion, today we have shown that cost accounting is very important for management decision involving choices between alternatives. The procedure for estimating is explained as emphasized on the uses of the direct expenses. Information obtained from cost accounting are, however, to be used intelligently in management decision making. Also, we presented the definition of statistics, highlighted the importance of statistical information. We raised the fact that the sources of statistical information are different, and we discussed it. We also talked about or shed more light on the various ways of presenting statistical data so that it can be meaningful to the managers and members of producers cooperatives. Okay, that's about it today. Like I say all the time, I always advise students to go through the in-cost assignment and attempt to answer them. Once you're able to do that, you'll find out that to attempt the discussion forum questions will be easy, and the TMA questions will also be easy. All right, till we meet next time, I wish to thank you for joining us. I hope to see you in my next class.